Hi everyone, Amber here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're sewing up the cutest backpack. It is called the Popper Backpack for Minis, and it is made by L Patterns. Thank you so much, Louise, for allowing me to film this. This is so adorable. So it is a mini backpack. On the front here, it does have the front pocket, which comes down kind of deep. And on the back, there's also a rear pocket that comes down the length of the body. So there's quite a bit of storage. I made mine out of quilting cotton, which I highly recommend because the coolest thing about this bag is that it kind of doubles as a travel pillow. So you can stuff the head here with polyfil or whatever stuffing you want to use. And if you have a little, they can use this as like a little pillow. Or I mean, honestly, if I was not playing, I could probably use it too. So I stuffed the head, a little bit in the arm, the foot, and the tail, and then left the body not stuffed. So that way, when you want to put things in your pocket, you have plenty of space, and the stuffing does not take up too much room. And so I use the measurements given in the pattern for the strap. I am short. I'm only 5'2", but I have some weight on me. And with these measurements, I can totally put the mini backpack on. So if you wanted this for an adult, these measurements may work, or you could adjust them. The cool thing is that the backpack straps are built like a crossbody, so you can detach them, change them up. It gives a whole bunch of options. So thank you again, Louise, for allowing me to sew up your pattern. In the description, I am going to have a link to all her social media as well as to her website where you can get this pattern. I'm also going to link her YouTube video. One of the options is that for the back pocket, you can do card slots. I chose to just make it as a regular slip pocket. So if you want a tutorial for the card slots, you'll have to jump to her video. So I'll make sure that I include that for you. I hope you enjoy. Timestamps are located in the bottom of the description. If you do like it, I would love if you give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. It does help me grow. I appreciate it so much, and enjoy the tutorial. All right, so to get started, I have all my pieces and hardware laid out. For the exterior, I have my pieces cut mirrored. So that means you're going to cut one facing one direction and then flip your pattern piece over and then cut it the other way. So you can see that both of my dino shapes are facing opposite ways. I am using a quilt cotton. This is the Grunge line by Moda. It's super soft, and since this backpack can kind of double as a travel pillow, I really wanted to pick a material that would be soft. So that's why I went with quilting cotton and didn't use like a canvas or vinyl. And on the back, I have it interfaced with some SF 101. So it gives it some structure, but still plenty flexible. And then I have 4 zipper tabs all cut out the same. I did not interface these since they're just going on the end. I have my upper strap loop or strap connector that is also interfaced with the SF101, and 2 lower strap connectors. For my lining fabric, I have that over here. I am using waterproof canvas. It has that PVC backing. This is the Pro Tough from Walmart. So this first one down here is going to be my front pocket. And then I have 2 pieces in the back. That is going to be my rear pocket. I cut just a regular pocket piece. There is an option for card slots. But since this is for younger kids, I feel like my nieces probably wouldn't need that. So I just went with the optional long piece to just turn it into a regular pocket. And I have my webbing here cut to size. I decided to go with as blue so that way it pops. You can kind of see it against the black. Same thing with zippers. I have 2 zippers cut to the measurement given. 2 size 5 zipper pulls. I didn't have any like dinosaur ones, so I'm just using these stars. I think they're cute. Whenever I don't have anything, I usually use like a heart or a star. And then I have hardware here, which is basically crossbody hardware. I have 2 snap hooks. These are the thicker ones, the kind that I carry in my shop. I also have an adjustable slider and 2 square rings. And I'm just using the square rings because I have a lot of them compared to the D rings. So that is all the hardware and materials that I'll be using. All right, so here I have all the tools and supplies that I'll be using. I have a bag of polyfil. If you would like to stuff your popper after to kind of make it like a travel pillow in the head, you definitely want some polyfil or similar filling. I have plenty of glitter clips. I have some fray check and some rivets here. These are optional, so I use them to attach the connector. I am using a Tex 35 thread. This is from Wizardry Stitchery. The little top fell off, so I'm not sure the name of the color, but I absolutely love their thread. I am using a 9014 Microtex needle. I have a seam ripper stiletto combo, some pinking shears for trimming around the curves, some snips, a blue marking pen, a silver marking pen, a chalk pen, and a chopstick to help me poke out the little hands and tail and also stuff the filling. If there's anything else that I use as we go along, I'll let you know. All right, for our first step, we are going to start with our upper strap connector, and then we move on to our lower, but it's a similar process, so I'm going to do all 3 at once. So you should have 1 upper, 2 lower, and on the back side, I have drawn my center line. And because I am using quilting cotton, it has a raw edge. So if you are using something that could fray, you are going to want to fold your edges in about 1/4 inch, your short edges. And I highly suggest taking an iron to press them to kind of hold them in place. I just want to show you what we're going to do first before I do that. So you are going to do that to both sides of all your upper and lower, so the short sides, and then you are going, once they're folded in, you are going to take the long sides and fold them to the center, to that middle line that you have drawn. If you want, you could use double-sided tape or glue. I don't want to use anything that's going to gum up my needle since I'm sewing on a domestic. So off camera, I'm going to take this and just use an iron real quick just to give it a press to kind of hold it in place, and I'll come back and show you. All right, so I have just used an iron to press these down. You can see that there's no raw edges, and that's because I folded them all in and then I folded them down to center. So I did that for both our lower strap connector and our upper. So now we're going to top stitch them. Our upper, we're going to do something a little different from our lower. So for our upper, we are going to top stitch all the way around about 1/8 an inch, which is your normal top stitch. And then we're going to do a second row of stitches at a little bit more inside. So you can see the measurement that she recommends in the pattern. And then for these here, we're just going to do 2 rows of stitching, like 1 on each side of top stitching on these. This is a little bit more of a decorative stitch because it's up top. You see it more. These are going to be towards the bottom, and we're also adding our D-ring connector to these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that at the machine. I am using a longer stitch, a 4, which is the highest my machine goes up to, and I am back stitching at the beginning and the end of all my stitches. Okay, so we just top stitch our upper and our lower connectors. So you can see that the top has that 2 lines of stitching, the lower only have the 1. So now we need to attach our D-rings, or in my case, I'm using rectangle rings. So our lower strap connectors, we are going to fold in half, and I'm just going to kind of press because I can see where the center is. If you want to, you get to even take some chalk. This is where it is here. This way it's more noticeable on camera. Okay, and so you're going to fold one side to that line and just kind of clip it in place for now. And you're going to do that for each of them. And then you are going to take your D-ring and you are going to wrap this other piece of your lower strap connector around your D-ring, or in my case, the rectangle ring, and then fold it to center. And I'm just going to kind of put a clip on each side to really hold it in place. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the machine and we're just going to stitch across here, top stitch across as close to the connector as we can. That way it doesn't like twist around once this is on our bag. What I am going to do is, because this is thicker hardware, I'm going to actually switch to my zipper foot so that way I can get really, really close to this bar. So we're not doing anything with the upper yet, only with the lower, and we are attaching our D-rings and top stitching as close as possible to the connector. All right, so now we need to attach our connectors to our exterior piece. And if you have really good eyes, you might notice that there's hole punches in between mine. That is because I accidentally sewed these on and riveted them to the front side. We want the back panel. So over here, you can see I had accidentally sewed them to my front, which is the dinosaur facing to the left, and I just patched it by putting some quilt cotton behind it and putting some interfacing. I don't think it's going to fray that much, and this is for my nieces anyways. So you want the exterior rear, the back side. That means the dinosaur is facing towards the right, and I have mapped out my 2 connector spots on the bottom and my center line for the connector up top. So for the bottom, we are going to place our connectors on that mark. Now, I am going to sew a box around them first and then rivet. I don't trust the rivets just by itself, and because I'm using quilt cotton, I want to make sure that it is sewn down as well. So if you want to put some double-sided tape or something to kind of hold this in place, what I'm going to do is just take it to the machine and stitch around my box. It does bump into your hardware. Just be mindful, do the box as best you can. Make sure you're back stitching in the beginning and the end. The other thing is be mindful of this little tail. It's so cute. And on the first time it bent back and I ended up sewing it on accident. So just be very mindful of all that. I'm gonna take it to the machine and sew a box around each of these connectors. All right, so I have just stitched down the box of for each of my connectors. I backstitched at the beginning and the end. You can see that they're not perfect. It's a little difficult with your presser foot trying to get close to this hardware, but not bumping it basically. So they are both on. I'm very happy. Normally I would sew this with a black thread so that way it would blend in, but I wanted to use the brighter so you could really see it on the video. Now I'm going to add a rivet, and that's for me is just like extra security. I don't like to do anything where it's just a rivet. I already have the hole through the connector from where I had sewed it onto the front, but I do still need to punch through the back. So I'm just using the front hole where I've already punched as my guideline. I did not measure that either originally. I just kind of eyeballed it. You could definitely measure. I also have this little rivet kit here. I go through the smallest rivets the most because I sew a lot with quilt cotton or cotton canvas, things that are thinner than vinyl. So I also have another kit that I got off Amazon that had the hand tools, and I've used the hand tools with a hammer or with an arbor press. I do have my rivet press here, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to put my rivets in from the back and put the cap on the front just so that way I can see it better. And before I put the cap on, I'm just putting a dab of the fray check because I'm using the quilt cotton. That way it will help it so it doesn't fray. You don't want to use too much because if you squeeze out a lot, it will spread, and because it's glue, it will be noticeable. So just be very mindful of that. And now I'm just adding on that top cap. And I do have a cam snap press. They are a little pricey. I did ask for it for Christmas. And then I just bought my dies off of Amazon. It made it a lot more affordable. But like I said, I have used an arbor press and the hand setting tools for a really long time. So I don't feel like a rivet press is a must. Though I do say it does make it a bunch easier. All right, so those are both riveted on. I'm very happy with how they look. They look fine on the back. And so now we're going to put our top loop on. All right, so our bottom connectors are on. Now we're going to add our top connector, our top loop. So this is what it looks like from the top side. On the back, I marked their center. And I am just folding these into center. And then what we're doing is we are going to have to attach this. So I marked my line and I drew it quite far down because I want to make sure it's low enough that it is not going to bump into my seam allowance. And this part is a little bit tricky. So what we're going to have to do, you can use double-sided tape, it would probably really help, is we are going to pull this top loop away and stitch down both of these short edges. So one straight line on each side. That's going to kind of hold this in place. So we're going to do some more stitching after, but that's our first step. I'm just going to kind of hold it and bring it to the machine. I am going to just put a clip here so that way they don't separate while I am bringing it over to the machine. So again, I'm going to sew this. Make sure you're leaving enough room on top for your seam allowance. All right, so I have this upper loop stitched on. What I found was that I actually just sewed one side, left this open or off, and then for the next side, I folded it under. It made it a little bit easier because I could just freely stitch that. So now what we are doing is, I'm going to turn to the side so you can really see. We are going to press this down so it centers itself out. And now we are going to stitch along the top and the bottom, top stitching at 1/8 of an inch, holding this down. So then again, it's going to form a loop underneath, but this is just going to stitch it and hold it in place. So we want to press it so it is lined up with itself, and then a row of stitching at the top and the bottom, making sure that you are back stitching at the beginning and the end, really holding this down. All right, so we have just top stitched along the top and the bottom of that tab. So now you can see it creates that loop here. And you could probably have used webbing for this too. That would work great. But again, I like that it is blending in with my fabric. And had I used black thread, it would really blend in for sure. So now I'm going to set this to the side and grab my webbing and all my strap hardware. All right, so I have my webbing cut to the size given, my 2 snap hooks, and my slider. So she gives you a measurement. You can use that and fold it to that in the pattern. I like eyeball it. So you're going to take your webbing and come up on one side. So I start from the right. Realized my thing was upside down. So start from the right, go over the top, and down through the left. And now we need to sew this on itself, but I don't like this raw edge showing. So I'm just going to fold it under a tiny bit. It's probably about 1/2 inch. And then we are going to stitch it to itself. So basically to the webbing that we just pulled over. And this is why I didn't mark it, because I feel like depending how thick your hardware is and your preference, whether or not you have to fold it over. So now I'm going to take this in the machine and I'm going to stitch along. I like to put two lines of stitching just to really hold it into place. You could also use rivets here if you want, but again, I just prefer the stitching. So I'm going to put 2 lines, making sure I'm back stitching at the beginning and the end. Alright, so I just did my 2 rows of stitching. I switched out to a zipper foot to get closer on this side. So now I'm holding this in my left hand. You could do it reverse. It's just because I'm right-handed. So I am holding this in my left and kind of just straightening out. So I'm making sure I'm not twisting this. Adding my snap hook pointing down. And then with my right side, I am going up on the right, over that center that we just sewed, and down on the left. And that is going to hide this fold here. So again, you can pull this, make sure that your webbing is not twisted. This is the same exact method of doing a crossbody strap. And so now we need to add our snap hook on this side here. And I, again, want to hide that raw edge, so I'm folding it back on itself and then folding it one more time to stitch down. And you can use the measurements. I'm just doing what feels or looks best to me. Again, making sure that nothing is twisted and that you're folding this to the correct side. You don't want to fold this to the top and then it be on the bottom over here and vice versa. So just make sure your strap looks okay before you stitch this down. So again, I'm bringing this to the machine and stitch just like I did for that slider piece. All right, so I have just stitched on this other snap hook. So now you have your strap. You can set this aside. We're done with it right now. And you are going to grab your zippers and your zipper pulls. All right, so I have both my zippers here. I have marked my centers. So I'm going to add my pull. I just always start on the right side. It's easier for me. And so I put the tooth in just a tiny bit. If you go too far, your zipper will be crooked. So like usually like only 1, maybe 2 of the teeth, and then fold it into my left. And then it kind of just will balance itself, and that I can tell is even. And then I just push on, and usually, there we go, they kind of slide on with no problem. You could also use a zipper jig, or the dollar store has these towel holders that people have used. You could use a fork. If you look on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of different methods. I've just gotten so used to doing it by hand that it hasn't been a problem for me. And then, so once you have your pulls on, we have our 4 zipper tabs, and I am lining them up right side facing up, because now what you're going to do is you're going to put them right side together. So the correct side of your fabric is going to be against the zipper teeth, and I am just going to kind of clip each one in place. Again, your fabric is right sides together with the zipper teeth, and we are going to bring these to the machine. There's a measurement given in the pattern, and we are going to stitch on each one of these zipper tabs. So we're going to sew along that short side at the seam allowance given in the pattern, back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, so we have just stitched on our tabs. We are not stitching them, like top stitching them down yet. So now we need our smaller of the 2 zippers. We also need our front exterior piece. and you're going to use your pattern piece as a template. I used it and I chalked the front zipper and put my center, marked my center. So make sure that I use chalk, so something that you can see if you are using a dark. And I am just trimming that in half, and also make sure you marked the correct line. All right, so now we need just the head. I moved the body out of the way. We need our zipper right side up. I want my zipper opening left to right, so I have my pull going towards the left. I'm kind of like pressing these open and away. She recommends if you want to put some tape here to kind of hold them, you could. I think it'll be fine just clipping. And so now we are going to take this front piece with the head and put it right sides together with the center of the zipper teeth. So I have that marked here. I still have my center here. So basically right side down, your wrong side should be facing up. And this is going to go against the teeth. So what I'm doing is I'm clipping my center first and then moving this out. And this is where, if you had taped it, it would have maybe stayed open. I am just using clips and making sure it is lined up. For this side, I am going to move my pull out of the way. Find if you don't do that, even while clipping, that's how you can get a wavy zipper. Okay, and then again, making sure that this is open to the left and clipping across. Okay, and so now we're going to take this in the machine and we are going to stitch at the seam allowance given. I'm not switching to a zipper foot yet because it's small enough that it's almost like a basting stitch for me. All right, so I have just stitched it on along the bottom. If we fold that zipper open, this is what it looks like right now. Again, we're not top stitching because we have not added pockets or anything. So now I need my bottom piece with the tail, and I'm going to put that matched up to my center, right sides together. So my tail is actually kind of pointing to the right side down. And again, I'm going to match it up. The right side fabric is matching up to my zipper teeth and clipping this across. All the way. The tabs are longer than what we need, and that is so that way we can trim them later. Okay, again, I'm just moving my zipper while I'm clipping. I personally think that helps. And clipping all the way across. So now I'm going to bring that to the machine and stitch along the bottom. All right, so I have just stitched along that line. So now if we open this up and we have our dinosaur right side facing up, this is what our zipper will look like. We're still not trimming anything yet. That won't be done until we actually add in the pockets. So now she recommends repeating this process for the rear with our longer zipper tape. So I'm going to do that on camera too. I'm just going to mark out my stuff and then I'll be back. All right, so here is my back panel. I have again drew my zipper line. You can see that it's at a different placement than our front panel. So just make sure you're marking the correct one. I also have my center marked. And now we're going to repeat the same process for attaching our zipper. I'm going to start with the top. If you have a particular way that you want the zipper to go. I think I'm still going to keep it to the left. You might want to reverse it because it's the back side. So we are going to mark up our center of our zipper with the center of the top part, and we're going to put them right sides together. So I'm putting my zipper teeth down and my fabric is right side up. And I'm just doing it from this side so I can really see where I'm clipping, making sure I'm going all the way across because we have not top stitched anything. Moving my pull out of the way. And then doing the same thing for this side here. Okay, and it will be a little bit easier to sew from on this side so I can see where the head starts and ends. And so now I'm going to bring this to the sewing machine and base stitch along that edge here, moving my zipper pull out of the way when I get to that part. Right, so I have base stitched that down. If I fold it open, this is what it is going to look like. Now I need my bottom panel, and we're going to do the same thing. If I have my teeth right side facing up, I'm going to line up my center, and I need to put my fabric right side facing down. So just matching up our fabric to our teeth, the centers, and then flipping. And I just turned it so I can really see, because this is in the shape of a dinosaur, it begins and ends at different places on our zipper tabs. That's why they are so long and have a little bit extra to make sure it accommodates everything. And again, just moving my pull out of the way while I'm clipping. Okay, and again, I'm going to take that to the machine and just base stitch, back stitching at the beginning and the end across here, moving my zipper pull out of the way when I get to it. Okay, so I have just base stitched on this side. So if we fold this down, we can see that we have our panel here. It looks great. So I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to grab my front panel again. So my front dinosaur piece and my front pocket linings. All right, so I have the front exterior and I have my two front pocket linings. One is an inch taller than the other, so I want the taller piece. And so now I am going to fold the head of my dinosaur down and turn it so that my zipper is the wrong side up. You can see the head is pointing to the right. And now I'm going to take my lining, my pocket lining, and put it right side down, matching up those center lines. And I'm just going to clip that into place. And it ends up being about the same exact length as the zipper. So that's a good way to like align it, I guess. So now I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to base stitch this in place. I'm actually going to sew from this side because this has the PVC backing and it sticks on my machine. So I need to use a Teflon foot when I'm sewing this, and I don't have a zipper Teflon foot. So I'm going to sew from this side, just back stitching at the beginning and the end, basting this into place. All right, so I have just base stitched this on. So now we need to add the other side. So basically I'm folding this open and then kind of turning this around. So now the head of my dinosaur is facing my left-hand side and the right side of my pocket lining is facing up. So this is the right, the back is the wrong here. So now I need my shorter lining piece and I am going to put that right side facing down. So that way the right side is touching the right side of the pocket lining. And again, clipping at the center. And if you didn't mark your center, you can match it up with your zipper tape. They will be the exact same length. And just quickly moving my pull out of the way. And now same thing here. I'm going to take this to the machine and I am going to base stitch along that edge of the pocket. Okay, so we have just stitched along this other lining. So now you can clip the sides of the pocket together. I'm not going to do that yet. It will hold it together. So if you're not really familiar with doing this, I do recommend it. But we need to make sure we flip these up. It's very important that we flip them up and away from us. And I'm going to flip over to my front side and make sure that my pockets are both facing up. Pocket linings. And so now in the pattern, she gives you a measurement to mark to the left and right of the zipper. I'm just going to eyeball it. And so now we are going to take this to the machine, making sure our pocket is up, because if they're not, we're going to stitch our pocket closed accidentally. So I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to start stitching here and top stitch across, ending down here. But the difference is I'm not back stitching at the beginning or the end. We're going to pull our threads to the back and tie it off. So that means I need to leave a long tail in the front and a long tail when I end. So again, I'm going to bring this to the machine. I'm going to be very careful when I do. I want to make sure my pockets are facing to my left or to the top. And I'm top stitching only along the bottom of the zipper, starting at the mark and ending at this bottom one without back stitching. All right, so I have stitched across the bottom and I have a long tail in the front on each side. So I'm going to flip this over to the back and I am going to give it a little tug here. It creates a loop and I can use my stiletto to pull up on that loop. And what that does is that brings my thread from the front to the back. And then I am going to tie them off on the back side. If you didn't want to do this, you could top stitch. It just means, back stitch, you'll just see it. If I was using a thread that blended in, I would definitely back stitch, or honestly, if you don't really mind just seeing that back stitch, this is just so it kind of hides it even better. And then the same thing over here. Sometimes the thread gets caught and does not give you like a loop. If that's the case, you can grab a needle, like just a regular sewing needle, and just thread your thread from the front to the back side, and then continue by tying it off like this. You could also use some frayed check. I just kind of trim them. You're not going to see this, so I leave a little bit of tails. I don't like to burn them down because if you burn the knot off, then they won't be tied and this can come undone. Yeah. So now, once you have that, that was also why this had to be folded up, because had they been down and you sewed through, you would have sewed your pocket here closed. Basically what it does is it just creates like a nice, where you're not going to see the edge of your zipper tape. So now I'm folding them both down and we are flipping to the front. And you really want to flatten it out. She recommends pulling both of these down separately so that you know that they're fully down. And again, clipping them if you want. So now we're going to stitch around the other three sides. So how I do this is I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm going to put my needle in the same hole here where that ended, leave a long tail, come up along the side, turn, come around the top, and back down over here, ending in that same hole. And again, I'm going to leave my tails really long. That way I can tie them off on the back side. So we're top stitching the other 3 sides of this pocket, making sure this time that our linings are folded down toward the tail, because if not, again, we'll sew our pocket closed. All right, so same thing we just did. I went up and around. So now I'm flipping it over to the back. You can see that it is ending in this pocket lining. This side here is giving me a little bit of trouble about the loop. So I might have to thread from the front on this one. If you're tugging and you can't really find which one is pulling through, you don't want to accidentally rip your, or like break off your thread. So I have mine right here. It's kind of a small thread, unfortunately. So what I'm doing is I stuck my needle halfway through first, and then I'm going to thread it. And then pull that through to the back. So if that happens, you can do something like that. And it's usually because you're going into the same hole where you've already sewn once. So it kind of creates like a knot. And sometimes it, like I said, it doesn't want to pull up and through correctly. And so this is just the method so you don't see your back stitching. It gives kind of a more professional finish. And then I'm going to knot this side. We still have not sewn these down. You probably have yours clipped. Mine are thankfully mostly lining up, so it's not a problem. That sometimes this could shift up here, is why you want to make sure that they kind of stay aligned. Okay, and then so now I have camera. I am going to grab my front pocket piece. It's a trim piece, and I'm going to line it up at the given measurement and then draw the trace the outline. All right, so you should put your trim piece on. Mine extends a little bit off the right hand side and the left hand side, so I only traced what stayed on my linings. So now I'm going to fold this tail away, so that way I only have the pocket linings. And starting right below the zipper, I am going to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to follow this line, and then I'm going to come back along this side, going up at the seam allowance given in the pattern, sewing this pocket together. You can clip it if you need to hold it in place. I am just going to hold it like this. Again, starting right at the bottom of the zipper and coming down and around. All right, I apologize. I thought I had hit record for a time lapse, but it didn't. So you can see I just followed kind of along where I had drawn. With all this extra, I can't really keep a consistent seam allowance. So I just did the best that I can. As long as it's within that drawn line, you'll be fine. And then over here, I didn't follow, like there was a curve shape that came off of this. So I just kept my seam allowance consistent over here. And I don't know if that's because when I cut it, like things shifted a little bit and it just didn't fit on correctly. So now I'm trimming this off on that line that I had drawn. And this pocket should fit behind our front panel if we did it correctly. All right, perfect. So if I flatten this from the front, you do not see any pocket overhang. So that is what that trim piece is for. So even if you don't get it perfect, as long as you don't see your pocket overhanging, like if I look from the back, you can see that it falls within my exterior piece. So that's the really important thing. So don't get too hung up around your stitches. if they're not like perfect. And then I always recommend opening it. Just make sure that your pocket is a functioning pocket. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally sewed my pocket closed. All right, so we're going to do a similar thing for our back pocket. All right, so I have grabbed my back or the rear exterior. It's the one with our connectors on it. In this step, she has you make card slots or an optional just 2 pocket panels. I went with the pocket panel. I'm not going to use card slots, or I don't use them very often. And since this is going to be for my nieces, I don't think they'll need it. I'm going to link to Louise's video because she does show you how to mark everything, fold it. And that way, if you want a video tutorial to follow along, she will walk you through that. Otherwise, I'm just going to attach this pocket piece in the same manner what you would do with your card slots, and same exact steps as we did for our front. So first thing first, I'm going to fold the head down towards me and then put it so it is wrong side up. And then I am going to take the longer of the 2 pocket pieces. This would be your card slot piece if you had made your card slots. And I'm going to put it right side facing down. And I am going to match up my center of my pocket piece to the center of the zipper tape. It should match up evenly. They should be the same measurement across. And then just like with the front, I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to stitch this in place. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. And I'm doing it at a very thin seam allowance. Alright, so I have stitched across the top. So now we need to add our other lining piece. So I am kind of just folding this. Basically, I'm lifting this up, my pocket lining, and I'm kind of just folding it over. And it can be really tricky, like just looking at the pattern or trying to read how to do that. So I really like the video. Hopefully that is helpful. So if you flipped it over correctly, you should have your pocket lining right side facing up. You should have the head folded down towards you, and you should see the wrong side. So basically you have the top of your zipper and it's the back side of your zipper. So then now you're going to take your other lining piece, find the center, and then put it right side facing down. So our 2 lining pieces should be right sides together. Again, matching up the centers here. And if you do it correctly, it should match up with the length of your zipper tape. It's more important to me that it is lined up to the sides of my other zipper lining. Again, I can feel the zipper, so I'm just moving the pull out of the way to clip this last side. Okay, and so now I'm going to take it to the machine. Again, backstitch at the beginning and the end, sewing at that very little seam allowance, holding that into place. All right, so we have just stitched across the top. So what I want to do now is push my pocket pieces, the lining up, and I'm going to flip this over so the right side of my exterior is facing up, and I can see that my pocket pieces are pushed up. And now these steps are going to be the same exact things that we did for the front. We're going to mark our lines, sew across the bottom here, tie on the back, then fold our pocket pieces down, stitch around the 3 sides, tie it off on the back, seal up our pocket by tracing out our piece, our rear template trim piece, sewing like what we did with the front and trimming it off. So if this step on is the same exact steps as the front, so I'm going to do them off camera. You can refer to the steps again if you need to, or just make sure you're doing the same exact thing as that front piece. All right, so this is our rear panel. You can see the pocket is stitched up in the back. It's a fairly deep pocket. So double check again. You want to make sure that you didn't accidentally sew it closed. That would be awful to get everything all done and then realize you can't open it. I did not trim the tabs yet. You could totally do that now. I think she tells you to do that after you trim your pocket. I'm just gonna wait till the very end after I sew everything together. So this pocket to me is heavier, or this piece is heavier because it has the D-rings or rectangle rings. So I'm gonna put that down first, right side facing up. And now I'm going to take my front panel and put it right side facing down. So everything should line up for the most part. I'm going to turn it sideways just so it's easier for me to see. Some of this I hand cut, so it might not line up exactly, but I am clipping as close as possible. We want to leave a turning hole down here in the bottom. So if you kind of want to like make yourself a mark so you know to start and stop, definitely do that. One of the options is that you can fill this with polyfil to turn it into a travel pillow. So you want to be able to reach your hand inside. All right, so I have clipped it all the way around. I've left a big enough turning hole in the bottom that I will be able to stick my hand up to stuff this. So now you are going to bring this to the machine. I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to slowly go all the way around at the seam allowance given in the pattern. Be very mindful around the corners. Go very slow. Just take your time. It's going to turn out great. Just follow the curves nice and smooth. You can see mine, it doesn't line up so much right here. It was definitely when I was tracing it, that was part of the problem. But don't stress too much. As long as you're catching all the edges, it should look fantastic. So I'm super excited to see this. I'm going to bring it to the machine. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end really well. Great, so I have just finished sewing up all the way around. I made sure I moved my pockets out of the way. It was also helpful. I folded down my rectangle rings or D-rings when I was going around this curve. That really helped. So around the curves, if you want to trim them down, or if you have pinking shears, you can trim this, and it is also going to help when we turn this right side facing out. So I'm just going to go around, take my time, and trim these down. I really need to get these sharpened and just do the best I can with these, trying to pink them. You can also cut like little slits around the curve. That's just going to help it turn and give a better looking shape at the end of the day. So I'm going to go around and continue pinking these. All right, so I have went around and I trimmed all the edges except for where my opening is. So now we're going to turn this right side out, and I'm just going to reach all the way up to the top, grab it, and then turn from there. I think that will be easiest for me. It's going to turn fairly easy because I use quilting cotton for the exterior. The waterproof canvas is going to make it a little bit where the pockets are. But not that bad at all. If you didn't turn or leave a big enough turning hole, or you're having any trouble, you could use a blow dryer. And I'm just kind of grabbing the hook up here, help poke everything out. And there's lots, like right now, here's the tail. And I'm going to grab one of I keep like a chopstick. And the nice thing is that I'm reaching my hand all the way up inside. And I like to take my fingers and really run against the seam. That way I know I'm poking everything out. And I think I can do that for pretty... Oh, look, I didn't catch a spot here. All right, so see if this happens to you. This is good to know. But what I need to do is turn this back wrong side out. And I am just going to re-clip that and sew that up real quick. All right, so I went back in and I just re-stitched where I didn't catch it. So that's one of the nice things about this and a lot of bags, that if you do make a little mistake, sometimes it's really like easy to fix and hide. This is where the little arm here, just making sure I'm trying to get as much poked out as I can with just my fingers. And then I also have my chopstick here, so if my fingers don't fit or it's really not pushing out, I just run that along the seams, and you can see that it's really catching. Probably should stitch this part with black, because if you look super close, you can see the blue stitching in a couple places. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not really worried about it. I used a small stitch length. I think it's just my seam allowance probably wasn't like so perfect going all the way around. But again, this is going to get stuffed and puffed out. And so I'm also trying to reach up between the two pockets. There we go. Making sure that I'm getting all the way around where the head and the face are. And so you could leave this unstuffed, but I love the idea of that the head of the dinosaur can turn into kind of like a little pillow for you or toddler who's wearing it. And the other reason why I grabbed this is because this tail, I definitely can't fit my fingers into this tail. So let's see. All right, I'm gonna have to play around with that because of course I pushed all the fabric into like a tight little ball. So it's gonna take a second for me to really kind of maneuver it. There we go. And get it pushed out properly. Okay, and before we close this up, I'm gonna grab my bag of polyfil. So the other thing I need to do is, because I've been reaching in this, my pockets are kind of not laying flat. So definitely take your time to kind of reach up and through, make sure that they are sitting nicely. You should be able to reach up between the two pockets. There we go. Perfect. So I think it looks great. I think the only part right here I had a little bit of trouble, but once I stuff that, you're not even going to notice. All right, so I'm going to grab some polyfil. Okay, so I got my bag of polyfil. If you've watched any of my puff quilts, the pillowcase tutorials, you know that I like a lot of puff. So I am going to really stuff the head. The head is like the part that would be the most used as the pillow. You don't want to stuff too much into the body because then you're going to make it so the pockets aren't really usable. So the part with the most stuffing is going to be the head. And I'm definitely going to put stuff a little bit down in the tail and the foot area here. And I'm just making sure, again, that I'm reaching up right between my two pockets as I'm stuffing this. This is great. You can see I'm kind of just like poofing it a little bit more towards the top. Especially, I want to make sure I'm pushing it really into all the edges. All right, great. and put a little tiny bit where the arm is. It's so cute. And then down where this foot is. And for sure down the tail. I discovered that some of these polyfil bags have a little tool inside that looks like a chopstick, and that is to help poke. Like, you could take it and help poke into different areas. I discovered one in this bag, and some of the larger sizes. I noticed it when I was teaching a puff quilt class last weekend. Yeah, so there we go. Really stuff it. And I think that's pretty good, because on this side, the pocket here is higher than over here. And I think I'm just going to take a tiny bit and kind of put it between the two pockets. There we go. Just so that way when it lays, there's a little bit of poof in the body. So it's not so like poofy and then flat. So again, I'm just kind of massaging the edges. Once you have it filled as much as you want, stuffed as much as you want, and you're happy with how everything looks, then we're going to close it up. So I just like to take my fingers and kind of tug at the openings. And usually the seam allowance kind of just closes up nicely on itself. And so I am just going to clip this closed. And you could hand sew this. Hand sewing would probably be the best to not show your seam. I hate hand sewing, so I am going to switch to a black thread and just close this up using my machine. And I'm going to switch to the black so that way it really blends in. Okay. I'm going to take that to the machine and then just stitch along the bottom, closing up our popper. All right, so I have just sealed it up on the bottom, and it blends so nicely, like you can barely even tell. So I'm super excited with how this looks. Our last step is to just add our strap. So I'm just gonna straighten this out. I had it all twisted. Okay, so I am clipping on one side at the bottom. Your other side is going to come up, go through our loop that we have sewn, and then bring it down back to this bottom. And then now you have an adjustable backpack straps, so you can put it to fit your needs. All right, we have just finished up our bag. Again, this is the Popper Backpack for Minis made by Elle. Louise, your pattern is wonderful. I love how it turned out. It's so cute. I'm so happy I went with the quilting cotton. This was the Grunge line by Moda. It's super soft, and I'm really happy that I kind of really stuffed the head. Makes it nice and comfy for a little pillow. And again, the pockets are great. I'm going to give this to my nieces. I know that they're going to love it. It also has the adjustable strap, so if they grow or need it smaller, there's 3 of them, so if they share, they want to adjust it, they can. I'm just overall so happy. The pattern comes together very nicely. Let me know in the comments if you make this or post on my social media. I would absolutely love to see. And thank you again, Louise, for allowing me to feature your pattern on my channel. I hope you love the tutorial. And again, if you guys enjoyed, I'd love if you subscribe or give me a thumbs up. Helps my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. See you next time. Bye.